New Norm with Selena Hill on Black Enterprise. Today I'm speaking with Necole Kane, who is the CEO and editor-in-chief of the women's lifestyle brand xoNecole.com, which was acquired by Will Packer Media in 2017. We also have with us Alix Baudin, the president and COO of Will Packer Media. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
No, of course. So Necole, I think many of us are really familiar with your story of how you went from broke and homeless to launching a $1 million celebrity gossip brand before later transitioning that site into a women's lifestyle and empowerment brand, which was then acquired by Hollywood super producer Will Packer. What leads you to make these career and business pivots?
Oh, wow. Okay. I feel like my business pivots have a lot to do with who I am as a person at a particular time. When I started the celebrity gossip site, NecoleBitchy.com in 2007, 2008, I thought I was into celebrity news. I had just came out of like interning in radio and working in promotions in radio. And that was a part of my job for the afternoon drive producer, was to pull celebrity news and interesting things for him to talk about every day. So that's where I grew a passion for that. But as my website grew over time, I started evolving as a woman. And I always wanted my brands to reflect who I was and where I was in life. And it got to a point where I kind of outgrew the content, and I became older. Like I transitioned from my 20s to my mid 30s, and I wanted to talk about like more like purpose, and I wanted to talk about relationships and beauty and career elevation. And I think I tried to sprinkle that into NecoleBitchy.com, but it was just like, it was so like contradictory. One day, I mean, you would see a celebrity beef and then you'd see a inspiring business story. So we tried to do it for a second, and I was like, just transition completely. And that's how the pivots happened for me.
So let's talk about the acquisition just a little bit more, because that was a huge pivot as well. That was definitely a huge story. I think the announcement came in 2018, but the actual acquisition was in 2017.
Yeah.
What was the scariest part of that?
The scariest part? Is that a question for Alix?
No, that's for you, Necole.
What is it? Seriously, because if you think about it, they took a huge chance on me as a company. I was a blogger, but it's not like I had a business background, a corporate background. You know, like I think bloggers back then, and even now, influencers, we jump into the business and we don't really know business, but but our creativity and what we do on a regular basis turns into a business right in front of our eyes. We go and register our LLCs and think, okay, now I'm a business owner. I think with Will and Alix taking that chance on me and then coming and acquiring my brand, it was one of those things where it was like, oh, I'm about to get found out that I'm not really like, that was literally what was in my head. Exactly. Like, oh, they're putting real money into this. Like it psychologically, and I've never talked about this before, but psychologically, it was a lot for me to deal with. And I remember we said we weren't going to announce the acquisition for a few months. Like, it's almost like a marriage. Like, let's make sure this marriage is going to work out before the world knows about it. Let's get past our 3 months. So yeah, it was a very challenge. Before they acquired me, I just felt like I was a player in the game. When they acquired me, I had to become a coach. I had to lead people. I had to become, like I had to grow up really quick and figure it out really quick.
Alix, I definitely want to get your weigh in about the acquisition. Was it as scary for you as it was for Necole?
It wasn't as scary. When we initially formed Will Packer Media, we knew that we wanted to, build out a direct-to-consumer digital part of the business. Will's built tremendous success in film. We wanted to form a new TV division, branded content, entertainment division, as well as digital. When we initially went down the path, we thought, oh, let's go out and hire a team, editorial team, and build it organically. At the same time, Will was having conversations with Necole, and then when he and I chatted, I said, why are we looking to hire an editor when we could actually bring in a phenomenal person with a phenomenal brand and actually invest in the brand as well as invest in Necole? And it was one of the best decisions that we've made. She has such a strong voice, such an engaging personality, really understands her audience. That for me and for Will, it was an absolute no-brainer. The key question is just, how do we support her, and how do we support the team? How do we make sure we build a compelling platform to amplify her voice, to amplify the editor's voice? How do we go into new lines of business? Because Necole had a strategy. When we went through this process, she provided us her strategy, what she wanted to get done. She knew what business extensions she wanted to build out. So it wasn't a function of she didn't have a vision. It was just really a function of, how do I fund this? How do I build the right team around me? How do I incorporate the right skill set? How do me, Alix, and Will add value to her and to the team? And so we're always really careful of just making sure that is 1 + 1 = 3, right? And so anytime I interact with Necole, and she'll probably smile when I say this, but my goal is to add value to her and to the team. How do we grow it? And so, look, things don't always work out that way, but we're just really fortunate that our approach and Nicole's willingness to take a risk and to be open and vulnerable and transparent, I think has made the relationship amazing.
Absolutely. So Alix, what is it that you actually look for in businesses and business owners when considering an acquisition?
If it's a direct and consumer business, similar to Necole, it's really about the strength of the brand. Voice matters. Having a unique entry in the market matters, because everybody thinks that they're covering the same topics, and the truth is they are, but it's really the voice and the tone of the voice. And that was, again, why we were so happy and so excited about Necole, because she just had a very unique entry point. It was really about empowerment. It was really about encouraging. It was really about being transparent. And when we look at other potential businesses, it's the same filter. Is this brand meaningful? Does this brand have a really engaged audience? Because it's hard. It's really hard to keep people engaged, to come back day after day. It's just not an easy thing to do. But once you really figure that out, it's easy to scale and amplify the business, right? And so we knew, again, going back to xoNecole, we thought the thesis was strong brand, engaging voice, unique approach to storytelling. And now the goal is, how do you actually amplify that and grow it in a way that you don't lose the creativity and essence of the brand.
Yeah, right? Yeah. How do you, what tools and resources you use to really grow this brand?
You're looking at Necole. I mean, at the end of the day, the essence of the brand is really reflective on her brand and creativity in a lot of ways. Now, obviously, we have a team. We have writers and editors, and we're doing virtual events. But Nicole's the brand filter, and so that plays a big part of how we scale the business. And we just want to make sure that as we do events, as we do podcasts, as we do traditional editorial content, we just want to make sure that the mission and the theme still follows through with that same brand filter.
Necole, what growth have you seen in xoNecole since partnering and selling your website to Will Packer Media?
Well, in 2017, we were just kind of like the website and social media. We didn't really have brand extensions. After being acquired, we jumped into events. We have two really great events I'm proud of: Pajamas and Lipstick franchise and Elevate Her, which supports women-owned businesses. We also jumped into video productions. We launched podcasts. We launched a members community and app. So there's so many different brand extensions that we have now versus when we were first acquired in 2017.
Yeah, and you've been in the media industry for so long. Do you have any business or money lessons that you learned since first launching your gossip site and then xoNecole that you applied?
Um, we'd be on here all day. um, yeah, there's so many. I've like grown so much as a business owner. Like I can now feel like confidently like embrace that title because of hiring people that knew more than me, especially in my sales department. Um, the people I consistently hired in sales had worked at other media outlets and publications. I haven't. I had guessed my way through, and so it's been a crash course, like a 2-year crash course in everything from RFPs to how profit and loss. And even when we do an event, like, Alix is always making sure our margins are right. Like back when I was a blogger, I wasn't keeping up with margins and things. I just jumped off the ledge for everything. Like if I wanted to do it, like if I had an idea, I wanted to do it. I didn't know about margins and all those other things. So I would say, especially because I know a lot of creatives, influencers, and bloggers do look at my story, and it might be like something to aspire to be. You don't know what you don't know. And so it's really important to hire people around you that you can learn from, that know things that you may not know. I was lucky to have, like, Alix has been in the industry and worked with so many different companies. And so he's kind of like a mentor almost, I guess it probably would have been different if I got an investor versus went through the acquisition. I don't know how that works. But I felt like I got a mentor with the acquisition. And money wise, pay your taxes. That's a big one for me because they're still coming after me for stuff in the Necole Bitchy days. So yeah, that's a big one because I think a lot of influencers and bloggers, they may think Cash App, Zells, and all that aren't being reported. They are.
Yeah, and that's applicable to athletes. That's applicable to many self-employed businesses.
Freelance writers, photographers.
You have to be very, very careful because that's something that will eventually catch up to you no matter what. And so, look, at the end of the day, a lot of people aren't taught to be entrepreneurs. That's unless they grew up in a family business, right? And if you grew up in a successful family business, then you're such ahead of the game. Mm-hmm. But many people in our community and in our culture haven't started businesses or had businesses handed down to them. And so, ask a lot of questions, build a board of people that you really respect and who's been in the business, and ask for help, right? Ask for advice. That's something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't do. Mm-hmm. And there are people out there that are willing to help, or at least give advice, or at least give insight, or at least give a recommendation. So yeah, that's a key thing.
Yeah, trying to get that financial aspect together really quick, because I know, like, again, the checks come pretty fast, especially, like I said, influencer wise. Mm-hmm. That money comes fast and easy. And so when you're in the middle of it, you may be thinking about, like, all the things you've always wanted in your life. But those setting aside that amount for those quarterly taxes is so important. Like it will come back to bite you like years later when you're a whole different personality.
Wow. So, that being said, and that's a hard lesson to learn, but you have that experience now, and you have that knowledge. What are you doing differently? I know you mentioned paying taxes. Do you have like an accountant? I know you're working with Alix. Like how are you handling the finances differently?
It's easier for me now because when I went through acquisition, I'm on salary.
Okay.
And so it's not like I'm chasing down all these different or trying to keep up with all these different income sources coming in. I do speaking engagements and things like that, but it's not at the same capacity as when I was a blogger and I was just had all these different advertisers and PayPals and all the just money going everywhere and paying all the staff. Like Will Packer Media is in charge of paying the staff and those type of things. So it's so much easier for me to keep up with now. And I pay taxes like regular people when regular folks pay their taxes. But yeah, so yeah, it's easier for me now. But all my stuff has caught up with me over the last 2 years. Like I'm getting tax bills from 2010 to be transparent. And so it's 2021, that's 11 years later. And that's why I feel like it's important for me to speak out on it. Like it's something that most people wouldn't, but I do because I know like I'm on the other side of people are where I was 10 years ago and I'm on the other side of that. And so I can speak to them from someone that's gone through the experience.
Right. Yeah, no, and speaking of, experiences and going through it, we've all been going through it with COVID. xoNecole was definitely doing so well and it continues to do really well. But I want to know, how has the company really pivoted and shifted since the onset of COVID?
You want me to take the initial lead on that, Necole?
Sure.
So 2020 was obviously a very difficult year for many people, from a personal perspective, professional perspective, industry, whatever the case may be. But it actually turned out for us, we actually had a relatively good year, and probably one of our best years. And it was in part because we smartly pivoted to virtual events. Necole jumped on that early.
Really quick.
Like really quickly.
In 2 weeks.
And that's the great thing about having a nimble team and having a really solid vision about what the brand is. Doing a brand extension should be relatively easy if you're nimble enough. And so we quickly jumped into the virtual business, and as a result, we were able to still provide an opportunity for brands to communicate to our audience, and so that was very powerful. We also shifted and really focusing on the right advertising partners. We're really focused on the endemic advertisers that made sense for our brand. And so that really helped propel us in 2020. And we were just really efficient at operating the business, like, just being really smart about where we invest our time. Necole and I and the team, we constantly say, we don't, it's only us. We don't have a lot, it's not a lot of us. And by the way, we're working remotely, right? There's this whole remote aspect, right? And working within that context. So we had to be really efficient with our time, really strategic about the types of brands we wanted to work with, and really strategic about how we wanted to, invest in our brand extensions. And as a result, we end up having, as far as I'm concerned, a really good 2020.
Yeah,
Yeah, so much so that we're really excited about 2021 and 2022.
Yeah, Alix, I know that you handle the day-to-day operations. You oversee them at Will Packer Media business divisions. And it does sound like, it definitely worked out. But initially, were you apprehensive or fearful? I mean, hindsight is 2020, but going into it, was there anything, did you have to like maybe come up with a new business model or a new strategy? Like, what was the early days like?
Well, but the interesting thing is about the early days, everybody thought next week is going to kind of be back to normal. Like nobody knew, like even, look, we're almost a year later, right? It's almost a year later. Nobody anticipated that this would go on for 10 months. And so, look, there was a bit of luck. The strategy was be efficient as possible in terms of cash flow. Let's make sure we keep the business stable so that we have another day to live, right? And so, and when we looked at it that way, we just said, look, every event we do, per Necole, what does the margin look like? Does it make sense? Just being really efficient in the way we spent our time and our money. And then we were lucky that the second half of the year, advertisers started to come back, and brands started to come back. And because we did a lot of the heavy lifting in 2019, like the later part of 2019, and still did some heavy lifting in the first part of 2020, it was really easy to kind of get back into the groove. But where it was really tricky for us was Q2 of last year. That's when it was really crazy, right? The COVID numbers were really bad. People didn't really have an idea when the end was going to come. But once we got through second quarter, third and fourth quarter, things were kind of getting back somewhat to normal. And also, we operate out of Georgia. Many of our team members are in Georgia, in Atlanta. And because of that, certain regions of the United States, as we all know, treated COVID differently in terms of how they operated their businesses. Atlanta was open.
Yeah, and it still is.
Still
open
is.
for business.
Right? If
Yeah.
we were coming out of New York and LA, it might have been different. It probably would have been different, right? So that was another factor.
Thank you for that. Necole, you founded two successful media brands, right? The first one by entering and dominating the celebrity gossip blogging space very early on, and then pivoting to create this women's lifestyle and empowerment brand, which has since grown into such a huge trend itself, women's empowerment and lifestyle. Seeing that you've been on the cusp of these spaces and these trends, what does the future of digital media look like?
Well, Alix, no, I've been keeping up because I send him links every day. But the future of digital media, to be honest, I would be surprised by the end of 2021 if not every media outlet doesn't have a paywall of some sort up on the website, or a paid newsletter, or some form. Like, everyone is kind of transitioning from ad supported only models and finding other ways to be supported by their audience. And so that's my prediction for 2021. And of course, virtual or hybrid events. So a little mix of, you got virtual, but there's a small attendance in person that's happening as well. But I think for the most part, those are my predictions for digital media and where I see it going. I think we don't want to become a slave to social media algorithms and chasing engagement and chasing every new platform that springs up. Now Clubhouse is the new the new thing. And I was just asked recently by just a fan of the brand, if we would have a club on Clubhouse. These things just have to make sense, and you have to know where your audience is. And since our audience is a little bit older, we were like, okay, maybe we won't do TikTok, just because we are more late 20s going into early 40s crowd. So it's about where your audience lives and how you could, instead of conquering all the social media communities that are springing up, just trying to figure out which ones you can be the best at.
And Alix, I know you've been working in the digital media space for a long time as well, for many different companies. Quickly, I wanted to get your take on the future of digital media as well.
Yeah.
I have one more. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, please go ahead. You want to add to that?
I have one more because, podcasts are going to explode in 2021. But I think the interesting thing is whether they're going to go paid subscription podcasting, because everything else is becoming paid subscription based. So
And I actually do think that will be the natural evolution. I think there will be more paid podcasts. I think there will be platforms that will program scripted, premium types of podcasts and provide that as a paid service. I think digital media, the most effective way to survive is to having a multiple revenue stream, period. So you have to have a paid product, either that is a paid wall, either that is a paid newsletter, either that is a membership program, whatever the case may be, all of the above. But introducing those kinds of opportunities or services is critical. Similar to what Necole said, I think having an event business is extremely important, but that event business will now be in person and remote. And how do you program for that? And then how do you smartly integrate your brand partners into that? So it's going to probably be even more difficult, but there are even way more opportunities to be creative about that experience. So I'm really excited about that. And then, the truth is, what's going to keep digital media growing is really understanding your lane, really understanding your voice and your tone, and developing great content that people find engaging. At the end of the day, this business is based on attention, and you can't keep people's attention if you don't have a brand that means something to someone. Right.
Well, thank you two so much. Definitely appreciate your time that you shared today, as well as your expertise and your perspective. And, we will continue to support xoNecole.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.